Welcome back to Creative Excuses. Today we are chatting about some of the recent changes to my Baldur's Gate 3 overhaul mod, Baldur's Gate 3 Chocolate Edition. Version 2 is out with quite a few cool additions and changes, and this is another one of my favorites which I can't wait to play, the Wild Magic Barbarian. This Barbarian subclass has received a massive overhaul which I am told makes it very similar to a Bloodrager in Pathfinder, but I can neither confirm nor deny because I've never played Pathfinder. In my mind, though, this Wild Magic Barbarian has become the half-caster version of a Sorcerer. Before we begin, thanks to everyone who has tipped to support the mod, chatted in my Discord about the changes, and helped test them. Your support has made all of this possible, so I'm really thankful. Also, if you like watching BG3 playthroughs, I do have a current Chocolate Edition run with episodes coming out periodically. The second episode released last week, and you can check it out over here. Alright, let's jump into it. Wild Magic Barbarian has a problem in the vanilla game. Mainly, it's kinda lame. There are only a few wild magic surges, most of which are beneficial, and for the most part, you're kind of just a melee martial character with very slightly more strict positioning if you don't want to sometimes hit your party with a random effect when raging. But mostly, you're just a barbarian that bonks stuff, and that's about it. You get a cool ability to support actual casters in your group, which is a niche but neat buff, but you could just long rest to get those spell slots back, so like, is that even important? Basically, Wild Magic Barbarian just isn't that exciting, and I think the proof of that is the fact that Karlach, who absolutely should have been a Wild Magic Barb, given, the whole raging engine of hellish magic and engineering that she has for a heart, instead she was given the Wild Heart Barbarian as her default subclass instead. So, how do we fix it? Well, we're gonna get there. Another problem that I see with D&D in general is that there isn't a half-caster or a third-caster sorcerer. We have half-caster clerics, those are paladins. We've got half-caster druids, those are rangers. We've got one third-caster wizards in the form of eldritch knights and arcane tricksters. And though artificers aren't wizards, they do seem related to wizards, but with more engineering in mind than like the bookishness of wizards. We also don't have half-caster bards or warlocks, but that's a different issue. We'll cover that sometime in the future. So how do we fix these two problems? Well, we're there now. Wild Magic Barbarian felt to me like the perfect candidate to fix the half-caster sorcerer gap while also using sorcerer-inspired features to make Wild Magic Barbarian significantly more flavorful. So here is the new class theory. Wild Magic Barbarian is essentially a sorcerer whose powers first sparked in a fit of extraordinary rage. They have limited control over the magical abilities, only gaining up to 3rd level spell slots as a half-caster, but they can channel some of this magic fuel rage into new martial abilities. That's the summary. Let's get into specifics. The first major change to Wild Magic Barbarian is that they are, of course, a half-caster, and they can cast spells while raging. Now, I made them a half-caster because, if I'm honest, 1/3 casters just aren't that potent. They're good at being defensive casters and control casters, but this barbarian is much more of an offensive caster if you use the right spells. This is because Wild Magic Rage has been made to add an additional +2 damage to your spell damage, meaning your cantrips get a +2, your Scorching Rays each get a +2, Eldritch Blast if you get that from somewhere, your magic missiles if you use those, etc. But even with that buff, a 2nd level spell slot at the end of the game just isn't a good use of an action when you could use extra attack with some of the other new features, which we're going to get to soon. So what does the Wild Magic Barbarian spell list look like? Well, the cantrips are very limited. There are only 4 of them, and you can only pick 2 of them, and that's all you're going to get the entire game, unless you get them from some other source. The 4 available are the Blade and Bow cantrips, 3 of which are custom to only Chocolate Edition. Lightning Strike, Booming Blade, Sunflesh Strike, and Zephyr Shot. The interesting thing about getting the bow cantrips and getting the additional spell damage from your rage is that you can actually function as a non-throwing ranged barbarian, an angry archer if you will, which is pretty neat even if it is a little niche. The rest of the spell lists are just 1-to-1 copies of the Sorcerer spell list for spell levels 1 to 3. However, your spell selection is incredibly limited. With all 12 levels in Wild Magic Barbarian, you're only going to get 7 known spells. You get 2 spell choices at level 3, 2 at level 5, 1 at level 8, and 2 at level 9. That's it. I limited the spell selection this much because ultimately this is still a barbarian, which is kind of like a ranger. You are absolutely a martial class, but instead of a defensive caster like an Eldritch Knight, a utility caster like a ranger, or a control caster like an arcane trickster, you're an offensive half-caster. It's also worth noting that you don't get the option to replace your spells known throughout the leveling process, so whatever you learn, that's your spell. You don't get to change it later on, unless you respec, of course. But if you've noticed a pattern in my Chocolate Edition half-casters, they all have a secondary, non-spell slot resource that they can use to do some pretty magical things. Rangers, for instance, get their instinct points to cast ranger-specific abilities, and paladins get channel oath charges. Well, barbarians have rage charges built into their class, so what if we could use them for a little more than just getting Angy? Well, now we can. Wild Magic Barbarians get the ability to turn up to level 3 spell slots into additional rage charges, and they get to spend rage charges like sorcery points on a set of features called meta rages. There are 6 different meta rage options. You can unlock up to 4 of them throughout the leveling process, and whenever you unlock one, you get an additional rage charge on top of your regular barbarian rage progression. That means without spending spell slots, you're going to have up to 9 rage charges per day to spend on raging or meta rages. Then you can obviously add in even more by converting spell slots. However, you cannot turn rage charges into spell slots, only spell slots into rage charges. Okay, so the 6 meta rage options are named after the meta magics from the Sorcerer class. You've got Distant, which is super cool. This one extends the range of your melee weapon and unarmed attacks, allowing you to make melee attacks from a distance, which can be pretty helpful in a pinch, or if you're playing a low ability character. Next, there is Empowered, which is sort of like a Wild Magic Barbarian smite. It simply lets you add 1d12 damage to your weapon or unarmed damage at the cost of 1 rage charge. Wild Magic bonks are going to go so hard, especially in the early game. But remember, in the early game, you're going to have pretty low maximum rage charges per long rest, so this is going to be quite expensive. We also have the Extended Meta Rage, which causes a unique Wild Magic Surge from a new list of surges. These surges are a sort of combined list from the Wild Magic Sorcerer and the Wild Magic Barbarian, but there are some wacky surges in there too, which can be pretty fun. Subtle is up next and might be my favorite one. This reduces the number needed to roll a critical hit by 4. This is a truly massive critical chance increase. With just this and advantage, you're going to be at roughly a 45% chance to land a critical hit. Stack this with other critical buff items, and suddenly you are going to be able to crit like nobody's business. A quirk of this meta rage, though, is that it works on each attack roll while toggled. That means a Scorching Ray should eat up to 4 rage charges, so be careful. Oh, and another thing? Depending on your build, and if you have Barbarian's Brutal Critical, this can actually be a higher damage meta rage than Empowered, which is pretty neat. And who doesn't like critical hits? At level 7, you're going to be able to get 2 new meta rage options that you can choose from, as well as the rest of the list. Quickened, which is the exact same as the Sorcerer version. You can cast a spell as a bonus action. This one costs 2 rage charges, so it is quite expensive, but of course, it is very powerful. This can work on scrolls, this can work on your regular spells. This is a very good meta rage. And the last meta rage is Careful. This one grants you advantage on all saving throws for 3 turns after your next attack or spell, which is pretty great. It's like an anti-reckless attack and can make your mental saves quite a bit better for fights where you need that. Remember, you're only going to have 4 of these options. You get 2 at level 4, 1 at level 7, and 1 at level 10. It's also worth noting that you cannot use multiple of these at the same time, so you can't add the -4 to your crit threshold and plus 1d12 damage at the same time. That would be really overpowered, so it's the same way that Sorcerers work. And that's pretty much it. You get to keep all of your base Barbarian features and all of the vanilla Wild Magic features. You also get these new meta rages, which allows you to spend rage charges on various fun effects, and you can cast spells that deal some very solid damage if you build for it. The Wild Magic Barbarian is no longer an unfortunately boring barbarian, but a powerhouse full of raging magic that multi-classes incredibly well. I'm looking at you, Rage Singers and Bladelocks and even Paladins. And it stands up on its own as a very fun and powerful mono class. I hope you enjoy it. If you want to support the mod, read more about it, or pick it up for yourself, there are links in the description. Until next time, I'll see you all in the next excuse.